farewell and goodbye. It's gonna be alright, yeah, yeah. How can you tell? Yeah, yeah. I feel it in my heart, yeah, yeah. It's gonna be okay, yeah, yeah. The sun is shining bright unto another day, yeah, yeah. It's gonna be alright. It's gonna be okay. Hey, hey, hey. If at first you don't succeed, you better try again. Hey, hey, hey. The clenched fist can't plant a seed. Just open up your hand. It's gonna be alright. It's gonna be alright. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be alright. I feel it in my heart. It's gonna be alright. You're gonna find your way. It's gonna be alright. Hey, hey, hey. It's very hard to let things go. It's hard to carry on. Hey, hey, hey. But if you won't try, you won't know what next is gonna come. You've got to just let it go, carry on. Let it go, let it go, carry on. It's hard to let it go, let it go, carry on. Let it go, let it go, carry on. Let it go, carry on. Let it go, carry on. And open up, let it go, let it go, carry on. Alright, it's gonna be alright. Carry on, let it go, let it go, carry on. Alright, carry on, let it go, carry on. You let it go, let it go, carry on. Carry on, let it go, carry on. Let it go, let it go, carry on.
And welcome back to another live stream. I am so excited to have an amazing guest with me, Kaveh Zamanian from Rabbit Hole. But listen, he's not just talking about his company, how he founded it. He brought out some of his rarest of the rares that he has in his collection. Folks, we're talking very Old Fitzgerald, 8-year-old. We're talking the original proof of private barrel selection. Oh, and one of the greats that people are always raving about and trying to find, the Black Maple Hill Rye 18-year-old. This is going to be an amazing night. I cannot wait to sip whiskey with this man. But first, it's really important that we continue to talk about why this community matters. Right now, we're all over the place. We can go to restaurants. We can't go to restaurants. The virus is spreading. It's not spreading. We're almost in a kind of like a de facto mini civil war in some ways on social media. Right here, every night we get together, we sip a bourbon, we talk about bourbon, and we talk about coming together as a community. And this is absolutely 1,000% a community. And over on the YouTube side, you're going to see that community in full force. Now, Kaveh is my first guest to have his own emoji created for him. Now, other guests have had things like guitars created or something like that, but I made a special emoji for Kaveh, and it's a fella with a hat and some sunglasses, and that's partly because Kaveh is so cool, but you're not going to be able to see that unless you're over on YouTube. So I'm going to bring in the guest now. Get your questions ready, and ladies and gentlemen, welcome Kaveh Zamanian, founder of Rabbit Hole. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, Fred. It's good to be here with you, my friend.
Well, I brought you in, and that emoji was right over your face. You couldn't have seen it, but it it was kind of funny. But how you holding up? You doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm in my bourbon bunker, and there's worse place than this to be hanging out. So it's not bad.
Absolutely. We've got a lot of folks in the chat right now, chatting up all over from Twitch to D Live to both Bourbon Pursuit and my YouTube. So lots of people watching you right now. And of course, folks, we got Kaveh Zamanian from Rabbit Hole. I guess before we get into your bunker and start dissecting your collection, let's talk about how you became a bourbon fan. What's the backstory there? When did you become a bourbon fan, and when did you start spending all your money on it?
Well, I've been coming down to Kentucky. I started coming down to Kentucky about 17 years ago, and it was my wife, who's from Louisville. Like most, that's a cottage industry. Kentucky woman bringing guys from out of state here, and that's when I had my first serious taste of Kentucky bourbon, and I was hooked. It was my first Derby and first bourbon, and it was an Old Forester, and after that, it was, as they say, there was no going back.
Now you're quarantined here, and I'm just taking I'm taking a little walk around your bunker, and you're going to be all right. You're going to be all right. I'm just looking around. How long you been building this collection?
I started probably about 12 years ago, 13 years ago, and just slowly, adding to it. And, I'm more of a drinker than a collector. I know it doesn't seem that way here, but, just as I'm sharing it with you, I love sharing the spirits that I have with friends and family. So, it could have been a lot larger if I just kept collecting rather than drinking.
That is the problem that those of us who are bourbon fans we sip on it with our friends, right?
That's right.
Now, how do you go about finding your bourbon?
A lot of it actually, as being in Kentucky, it's an advantage. So there's a lot of folks that have been collecting or have collections that have been sitting on for a long time. And a lot of it, honestly, it's just word of mouth. And obviously, as I've gotten into the business, more people have met more people that are bourbon fans and have bourbon collections. And it's just conversation, and sometimes it's trading. Sometimes people want to offload things, and it's just basically a combination of things, but primarily word of mouth.
Yeah. Have you ever? So you when you were building your distillery, did the vintage law ever hit your mind of like, maybe I can like use this a little bit more, build my own like special library at Rabbit Hole or something like that?
It did, actually. It did. So we do have a really nice library for Rabbit Hole as well. I try to separate the two out, but we have a great collection at Rabbit Hole as well. And the idea was, this is pre-COVID, that we're going to have some really cool evenings having whiskey food pairings and bring in these specialty dusties that people don't get a chance to taste, and have a nice experience over a nice meal with friends and get a taste of those beautiful expressions.
Yeah, it's funny, like we have this conversation like, pre-COVID, and of course, everybody can see my Bourbon and Beyond sticker there. This guitar over here in my background, that's my Bourbon and Beyond guitar, and just so many things that COVID has taken away from us. But one thing that I've noticed about distilleries is that nobody's saying like, oh well, poor pitiful us. You all have stepped up and have become leaders and have been doing a lot of great things. And I know your focus has been in a big way on bartenders. Tell us a little bit about what you've done for bartenders in the COVID time.
Yeah, as you know, those guys are on the front lines, and we have a soft spot for them. They're the ones that tell our story on a day in, day out. And we've been big fans of Tales of the Cocktail Foundation for a long time. They do great work on education and support of that community. And when the crisis hit, we felt that it's really important to go ahead and help that community. And we felt that, I particularly felt that it's best to go narrow rather than wide, and focus on a foundation that does really a solid job with the bartending community. And Tales of the Cocktail was a natural for us, and started the conversation a couple of months ago, and then we rolled with them.
Yeah, but you donated a lot of money. I mean, it might be one thing, but you guys like dropped a big check, and you're not Brown-Forman. I mean, yes, you have a parent company that supports you, but you're not Brown-Forman. You're not Woodford Reserve, or you're not one of these big companies. I mean, you're still pretty tiny, and you dropped a pretty big six-figure check. So.
Yeah, we did, and I appreciate you mentioning that. I think a lot of folks, because of our partnership with Pernod, assume that we have deep pockets. The reality is, it is exactly that. It's just a partnership, and as you know, once the merger came in, my investors basically stepped out, and I think they were pretty happy with the outcome. And I pushed all my chips back on the table. So really, these are our own dollars that we're putting out, and we're giving up to $200,000, which is a pretty significant amount for a brand of our size. But again, this is an important community for us, and Tales is a great foundation that I know that can deliver for those guys.
So as comments come in on the chat, I will read them to you if I feel like that you need to hear them. Here comes ones from Tony Watson on Periscope. Do you ever get over on Periscope, Kaveh?
I have not. No.
It was like the original streaming thing, and now it's like it's still pretty cool. Tony Watson says, had their bourbon at Catch 23 at the Embassy Suites for the first time. Great bartenders. So you got a fan there, and Tony Watson.
That's awesome.
We got a comment here from Kurt Colson from Washington, D.C. He says, thank you, Kaveh. By the way, we are streaming internationally. We've had a few people pop in from Australia saying they're eating their Cheerios with us right now. So we've got people from all over the world checking us out. So let's talk about, like, you've got. So I tasted High Gold, for the first time. It was a few months ago I tasted it for the first time. Then I followed up on it a couple of weeks ago, and this was it really impressed me. It really impressed me because it starts out, the nose on it starts out, quite a bit differently than you would expect from a bourbon, and then the palate just really kind of like, it's like it explores the palate in a much different way. So tell us, what was your vision with High Gold, and this is a 3-year-old product, right? Is it 3 or is it 4?
It's just under 4. It's literally
Just under
about
4.
3 years and 10 months. Yeah.
Okay.
And it is 70% corn, 25% malted rye, and 5% malted barley. So we wanted to make a high rye recipe, a high rye bourbon, because our first release, Cave Hill, that's a 4-grain. And we wanted to do something different. We have about 5 different recipes currently, and this is our second release. Our whole thing is about the grain bill, the cooking process, fermentation, and playing around with different types of malted grains. So I think the combination of, it's basically 30% malted grains between the malted barley and the malted rye. It packs a punch. And then, I'm a big fan of Calvin Cooperage. All the barrels are toasted. I think that toasting also makes a huge difference from a maturation standpoint, bringing a lot more of kind of those caramel and vanilla notes and mixing it in with all the spice that we have in the grain bill.
Yeah, I mean, really, you guys took a pretty big risk when it came to formulating your styles, because you did a lot of these things with malts that no one had ever done before, or at least at that level, for like making that like your staple. Do you feel like you have gotten to a good place now with your malts, like, or are you still experimenting, trying to find that sweet spot with the various grains?
No, I think we're in a really solid spot. We have the 2 bourbons, Kentucky straight bourbons that we have. Cave Hill is the 4-grain, and I think that is just right now, it's humming from a standpoint of the process and what we're doing from maturation. And High Rye is I'm really pleased with it. So these 2 are going to be our kind of standard, if you would, main menu bourbon offerings. Now, we are looking to release some of the older expressions, so we've been holding back some of those barrels that we laid down earlier. And I'm really excited about our Boxer Grill, which is our Kentucky Straight Rye. We're releasing a 6-year-old of that puppy in September at cask strength. So as they're maturing, as they're really kind of taking shape, I'm just really pleased with how they're developing, because you're right, it was a risky proposition for us not to source and go to contract distillation, lay these recipes down, not knowing really how they're going to end up 4 or 5 years down the road. Yeah,
so we've had a lot of questions. People apparently they've come to Kentucky, they've tasted it. The consensus is that it's a hit. But now they want to know, when are you in California? When are you in Maine? When are you exporting? And they got people in there talking about it's everywhere in Connecticut. Come to Connecticut. Let me know if you need to Connecticut. So it's like the chat is like trying to solve your lack of availability in California or something right now. But where are you nationally? Where are you?
Yeah. We just we're in the middle of a national launch actually as we speak. Unfortunately, again, COVID slowed that down a little bit, but essentially we are en route to be in every state in the union, and we certainly are in California, Connecticut. I believe Maine, if it's not opened already, it should be opened shortly. And we are actually also entertaining some of the international markets. We're planning on being in UK sometime in September, if everything goes well with some of this stuff. We were actually supposed to be in UK in July, but obviously with COVID, things have been delayed. And we're planning a broader international release sometime for the next calendar year.
Now we're gonna step back away into like your personal life here, back into the bunker. I always notice you're smoking cigars in there.
Yeah.
Your wife lets you smoke cigars in the house? Like, I can't do that. How do you get away with that?
This is the only space in the house that I can smoke, and we've had to I've had to rig it up. So basically, there's a filter here, there's a ventilation system, the whole 9 yards, because otherwise the entire house would stink. And Well, she couldn't live with that.
Well, that's a good setup. Well, let's taste this High Gold. Like,
Yeah,
um,
grab it. Let me grab the bottle. Let's
oh,
do it.
I thought you already poured it.
I had actually, um, I had a little bit of that Fitz before this, so I was
Oh,
sorry.
that's all right. So do you like when I mean, you have this amazing collection. You're tasting all this whiskey. Do you ever do you ever have to get yourself back into a spot like, all right, I'm about to taste Rabbit Hole. That's not 1965 Stitzel-Weller. You have to, if you're a psychiatrist, you got to ground yourself. You got to get yourself ready for tasting your product after tasting something from the 60s.
Well, you do, but it's a source of inspiration, right? I mean, at least that's my excuse for this collection, and I'm sticking to it.
I
It's my,
love it.
my reason to taste all these great things and help me maintain that inspiration and try to do some good things with Rabbit Hole.
Well, you have a note in High Gold that I don't really recall getting in a bourbon. I've gotten it in quite a bit of scotches, and that is like you ever get like when you go to like a tiki bar and they put a piece of sugar cane in there in your drink. It's just like a little cut of a sugar cane, be like that big, and you get it and you chew on it, and it's like sweet but savory.
Yeah,
This has that note in there, and you just don't get that. You don't get that in a lot of whiskeys. Now everybody's telling me I need to get a hat. So, you know what? I like my
well,
hair, everybody.
exactly. Tell me what you think, though. I mean, in terms of it's a high rye recipe. We've got 25% rye in it, malted rye in it. So you're saying it's a little bit different than the standard high ryes.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely this feels a lot more sweet to me than typical ryes for me. There definitely is some spice, but it is it's quite a bit sweeter. Yeah.
That's
Which if you're
fascinating.
if you're in bourbon and you're getting labeled sweet, that's usually a good thing.
Yeah, no. It is a good thing. I was thinking about it just in terms of the percentage of rye that's in there. It's I think um, it is a compliment.
Yeah. A lot of folks who have tasted it are basically conferring that they found it sweet as well. And do you want to go to your Cave Hill, or do you want to go to
I want you to taste the Cave Hill, and the reason being is that it's a recent commemorative bottle that I just actually barrel that I opened up for as a note of gratitude to our investors. And this is a cask strength. It's about 4.5 years old. First release of Cave Hill at cask, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about
yeah.
it.
So this isn't out yet.
No, this one was just a limited edition release that
Okay.
we actually gave to our past investors as a sign of gratitude and say thanks to them, and some of the folks that actually attended Bourbon Affair last year. The people that attended Bourbon Affair's dinner last year got a bottle of this as well.
Um. So you have a very interesting business story as well. I'd like to get to that throughout the show, and you don't have to go into all of it like right now. But you did go out and hustle and get investors, and then you've won a lot of entrepreneur awards. Basically, for that. But man, I've got businesses asking asking people for money is got to be the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. And you didn't come from that world. You came from the shrink world. What did you do to get yourself in a position to say, hey, can you cut me $1.5 million? I want to start a distillery. Can you give me whatever the amount you were asking for? What's the process of going and asking somebody for money, especially the amounts that you had to ask for?
Well, Fred, aside from having a good plan, you have to be honest in terms of your story, and you got to be passionate about it. I think one of the things that was, looking back, key to my success, and maybe the folks that actually joined us and invested could probably attest to it, is that they knew that I meant business. I actually put my money where my mouth is, and I invested, and I put everything on the line myself, and I was very passionate. My heart, my mind, everything really was on the line. And I think that was probably the biggest seller, because they knew that I'm not here just to bullshit around, and I'm here to make something original. And a lot of the folks that joined us were people from Kentucky that they've always wanted to be part of the business, and this was an opportunity for them to get on board and be a part of, I think, something magical. So it was a combination of also timing as well. Aside from my passion and the business structure and the dream and the ideas and all those things, timing was right as well, because I started in 2012, and that was a time that still we were on the rise in terms of new bourbon brands coming to the market.
Yeah, well, you definitely were. You weren't quite ahead of the curve. You were kind of like right in the middle of it in terms of getting on that wave. But I think when you all built that distillery, I think you created one of the most beautiful architectural facades of any whiskey distillery in the world. I mean, that distillery has the potential, to become iconic from the road. The way you have that rabbit and that design. How much did architecture go into your plan very early on?
I think architecture was a big piece of it. I would actually step back and say, really design. I think design element is part and parcel of not just my own approach to Rabbit Hole, but I would say everybody that's part of Rabbit Hole. I think there's a creative, if you would, kind of theme to all the employees, everybody, including the people that are actually working in hospitality, from all walks, from marketing, branding to hospitality. Everybody's got a kind of creative sensibility, and that's part of our culture. Obviously, the distillery reflects that. We spend a lot of time trying to think about how do we design something that is iconic, and it's also packs a punch. It's able to produce the kind of number of barrels that we do every year, and at the same time, it's got this really beautiful blend of hospitality and manufacturing, fully immersive. People can really enjoy their experience.
Well, Kaveh, I just while you were talking, I was sipping on the Cave Hill, and I don't know if you were using your psychiatry techniques to hypnotize me to like this, which is always, I fear, a danger with you. Like, you got a little bit of like a pendulum swing in there, and maybe you got some techniques that I don't know about. I'm on to you, but this is as I
voice.
What's that?
I said it's the soft and gentle voice, Fred.
Yeah, but you gotta if you need to firm it up, you can. That's for sure. That's
true.
For sure.
So what do you think?
So my first impression was, I need to taste this again, because I want to make sure that I'm not being won over by your story. And you know how I am. We are, we're very upfront with one another. And if I don't like something, I will tell you. And so this isn't just me just telling you if I like it because you're here and we're being nice. But let's give it one more shot.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate it. You've always been very frank and very candid. And for those folks who don't know the backstory, we've known each other for many years, and I always really appreciated your honesty.
Yeah, and I scored your stuff pretty low before, and I can tell you right now that I would not score this low at all. This is fantastic. It makes me regret that I'm not an investor because if you're making this for them and only for them, those are some lucky people. As I would say, this is some bitchin' good. This is really good.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, here's actually the label. It's a white label with our jumping rabbit on there. So cask strengths are going to be part of our annual release. So Boxer Grill 6 years coming out in September. We're going to have actually Cave Hill at 6 year next year as well. So just be on the lookout for that.
Mm. Yeah, you did a nice job with this. This has a profile of competition whiskey. And what I mean by that is like it hits a lot of areas on the palate, and it stays there for a long time, and it's just the right enough proof that it won't get lost if a taster's palate is oversaturated with 150 spirits for the day. So this is a good one. You should be very proud of this one.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So if you all have questions for Kaveh, go ahead and ask them. And as we're going on to whiskeys they're gonna make you extremely jealous because you're not going to get to have them unless you have a Black Maple Hill 18-year-old. I mean, my God, And I'll be very candid with you. I've never liked Black Maple Hill. Everyone's always gotten in a tizzy about them, but I've never been really that kind of taken aback by them. Of course, I didn't necessarily have some of those early 2000 products, which this is even older than that. So I'm excited to taste this. Where do you want to start, my friend?
I'd love to start there. Let's go with Black Maple if you're up for it.
All right. Now, we do have some questions coming in on the chat.
Yep.
Nick Foles asks, what is the oldest bottle of whiskey you own?
The oldest bottle of whiskey, I think it's an Old Fitz from 1950. Well, no, what am I talking about? I've got a lot of pre-Prohibition bottles, and this is one from 1919. Actually, it was distilled in 1916. It's an Old Forester and bottled. This is actually a 19-year-old that was distilled in, distilled in 1916 and barreled 19 years later, 1931. So this is one of the old ones. There's a whole bunch of the small pints.
They would, like today, like you. What could you sell? What could you sell a barrel of 19-year-old Kentucky bourbon for today?
19-year-old Kentucky bourbon? Jesus Christ!
If you put that on the open market, what could you sell that for?
Oh my God! It's priceless, man. I don't know. I mean, it's. I would probably say $40,000-$50,000 at least.
Yeah. That's, and back then, that was probably considered like some of the worst whiskey that they had because that generation did not like old whiskey. So when someone saw 19-year-old bourbon, they were like, oh, shit, I'm staying away from that.
Yeah, no kidding. Exactly. Well, and as you know, not all older bourbons are good. I think that's where you get these exceptional folks like Julian who really knows his shit and knows how to select a 20-year-old or a 15-year-old. It's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. The barrels, they can just like oversaturate with the wood. And barrel entry proof back then, of course, was 110 and lower. And today, most people are going in at 125 or just maybe 114 and 125. But, very few are what is your barrel entry proof? I actually don't know off the top of my head.
We're at 110. We've been doing
Yeah.
110 from the beginning, actually, and I love the article that you wrote, I believe, for Forbes, talking about the brands that are barreling at 110 and below. So yeah, we're at 110.
Did I stick you in there?
You did. You did.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. So that means that I at least did some research for that story. Even if it didn't, stay in the brain. But it is true. It is true, folks. If we were to go back in time to 1962 or 1961, like 75% of the bourbon brands on the shelves today would not be considered bourbon based on the barrel entry proof. That's a fact. And no one really wants to talk about that. I don't understand why we don't have more of these conversations about barrel entry proof. But hey, I'm not an accountant.
I think it's a great point. And I think that's part of the reason I actually picked this original proof for our tasting tonight, because it's at 106, and this is definitely pre 1962, and it went into barrel at 110, and you got it out at 106.
Well,
7 years
actually,
on this one.
a little something interesting about that too. We're going to get to that one in a minute. Right now we are on the Black Maple Hill, folks. I'm going to put that photo right in between us. Look at me being a producer tonight. Look at that. All right, so that's what we're tasting tonight. It looks like you're close to killing this bottle. You just got a little bit left.
I am actually. This is going to be dust tonight.
John Henderson asks, is there like any unicorns still in your life? Are there any bottles that you're still looking for?
I have. I'm a big fan of Hirsch, and if I can get my hands on some of the old Hirsch, definitely. I only have one. I had two, drank one, and I got one more left. And I have a tendency, like probably most collectors, you get two, you only drink one, and you got one in your collection. Until I replace that, I'm not going to drink this one. So, that's what I'm looking for, and I think it's out there. It's just a matter of it's not so much of a unicorn, but the price gets a little steep. So it's either cigars, Cuban cigars, or bourbon. I got to compromise here.
Well, oh my God, this is amazing. This is out of this world. Oh my God. So in my rankings of ryes, the best ryes I have ever tasted, basically goes something like a Michter's 25-year-old, a Willet 23-year-old, the Red Hook rye, some Prohibition era ryes, and then I'm putting this on that list. This is
this is one of my favorites. This is one of my favorites. I have an affinity for really old, very old ryes. So the Willets that you mentioned, I got a whole bunch of older Willets, and it's just those bottles are just absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
My God. Think about this. One of these kinds of whiskeys is it has so much going on that it's so difficult to find a predominant note. Like there is tons and tons of flavor, from chocolate and coconut to cherry to like a hickory smoke. I mean, this is sublime.
Yeah, you can really chew on it. It's like you can go back and get so many different flavors. You're absolutely right. It's very chewy. It's just that's the word that comes to my mind. It's luscious.
Yeah, and you just want to keep tasting it. And it's 95 proof, so you're not getting beat up with any kind of alcohol. And it's velvety. It's beautiful. And now as I'm just kind of letting it linger on my palate a little bit, I'm getting some coconut, and then I love coconut. So Greg Cook asked if you have any Infinity bottles and if you have any suggestions for blending with them.
I don't, but I love playing. I mean, I have, and we just drink it. I just blend stuff, and I don't necessarily have one where I keep adding more and more stuff to it. But I love experimenting and playing around with different expressions and tying it together and see what happens. We actually were, in fact, Michael and I, as you know, Michael, we were playing around with mixing High Gold and Boxer Grail, High Gold and Cavill, and some of the other stuff. It's kind of fun to do that. I don't have one going, I just kind of pour and mix things and try different kind of flavor profiles and enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I would blend this Black Maple Hill with anything.
I would not. I would not. And the other thing about it for me, Fred, is that, this very well, that back in the day, there were all these different grain bills. And I know that right now everybody's really excited about blending and finishing. But I really think that mix, that connection between the culinary world and these grain bills and the way we go about processing and cooking it is part of what also magical. The only thing that we don't share, we're not transparent about it, is our cooking process. So that's one of the things that, we have to get the distillers to swear by it and sign on the dotted line, not to share that secret. But, I think that in some ways there's something exciting about playing around with the different grain bills. Obviously blending and finishing is another component of it that's very interesting and important too. But we kind of start from the beginning and put our eggs in that basket a little bit.
Now, we just got a really great question on Facebook from Travis Lucci. I hope I got that name right, Travis. When did you fall in love with bourbon? You answer that. I'll answer it too.
Yeah, I honestly fell in love with it. I mean, I look at it. It was me and my wife. Probably it was 2003. Going back and forth, I was tapping and talking about Scotch, and she was going on about how, I'm kind of missing the boat because I don't know about bourbon. So it was in that process. It was kind of falling in love with her and falling in love with bourbon at the same time. I think she had the gumption to really push me, and once I started getting into it, I just, I was hooked, like I said earlier.
Very similar story. Mine too was wife related. Now, when I was in Iraq, I used to have people send me Listerine bottles that were filled with Jim Beam or Jack Daniels. But let's face it, I was not in the loving stage of anything back then. I was more of in the drinking stage. I was in the Army, and there was not a lot of connoisseurship going on as a young man with that could do like 150 push-ups back then, which very different today. But mine was also with my wife. We got when we started dating, she was drinking Maker's Mark on the rocks, and I would start to order things like 1792 Blanton's when you could get it, and it's kind of like it really resonated with me. And then, professionally, I started writing about it, but it wasn't my first story comes out in 2006, and it's not like that. I started like focusing on it. It was getting around the people that really changed me and made me fall in love with bourbon. It was Fred Noe, it was Chris Morris, it was Julian Van Winkle, it was Freddie Johnson, all these people who make you really just understand what bourbon is all about. And it's the culture, it's the people, it's this community tonight just talking away. Bourbon is a way to accentuate like the social aspect of life. And that's why I think that's where I really fell in love with bourbon. But like you, and I also moved to Kentucky because of my wife. So maybe that's
I think
why we get along so well.
Yeah, I think, along the lines of what you're saying, just made me think about the box that's sitting up here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but at the groundbreaking, actually, no, yeah, it was at the groundbreaking where I got this box where all the distillers, all the master distillers in Kentucky signed that box for me. And it was probably one of the most touching experiences of my life that these guys got together and really, to me, it was a stamp of approval, this kind of welcome to the club, if you would. And it's such a testament to how amazing the folks in this industry are and how gracious they are. It's really moving for me to even think about it still.
So here's a great question from John Henderson. So we're largely aficionados who are big on high proof, big flavored whiskey. Let's say a Rabbit Hole just lands on the shelf here. What's the first bourbon? What's the first bottle we buy? So that he's basically saying like he's high proof, full of flavor, and he wants to know what Rabbit Hole he should buy.
Yeah, right now we don't have a cask strength release. The cask strength that's coming in from a high proof standpoint is going to be Boxer Grail 6-year in September. But right now, what you can buy is 95 proof. I would say either Cavehill or High Gold, depending on what your kind of palate's like. Cavehill is basically barley is the secondary flavoring grain. So it's got a little bit of a kind of a peaty, smoky feel to it, but it's got secondary flavoring grains of barley and then malted wheat. And then you got High Gold, which is the high rye. Malted rye is a secondary flavoring grain. Both of them are at 95, and I think to me it's like picking which one of the babies you like. I love both of them, but I do notice at the distillery people gravitate to one or the other, and a lot of it really has to do with their own palate and their own preference. So, for what it's worth, that's my 2 cents.
I think it's actually a really good way to answer how to pick your favorite baby, which we're all going to have. I mean, when you put it the Sophie's Choice in there, we all think about it like, yeah, you have to pick. But I also will add to that, John, is that you heard me talk about the personalities and everything of bourbon. Well, you're kind of getting to see Rabbit Hole tonight, and Rabbit Hole is Kaveh, and Kaveh is in some ways is a lot like us. He's a bourbon geek, and he's spending his extra money on bourbon just like we do. So when I pick up a bottle of Jim Beam, which I do regularly, I think of Fred No. When I think of when I pick up a bottle of Maker's Mark, I'm thinking Bill Samuels, one of my mentors. And, just in general, these bourbons, have so many interesting personalities behind them. And Kaveh is one of our first new ones onto the scene that, as you heard him state, like all the distillers signing it, one of the first ones onto the scene that really has been accepted by the distillery community, and that's the truth. Is you have been accepted, and you're still here.
Well, I appreciate it, Fred. Yeah, no, I think it's one of those things where, again, it gives me goosebumps thinking about it. Hanging out with these guys, I was part of the. Now I'm actually part of the founding members for the Order of the Writ, as you are a member as well. And I think that to me is really a stamp of approval. Just kind of basically getting these guys telling me that we do believe in you. You're doing things right, and that's the most important thing to me because, like you said, I'm one of you guys. I started really approaching this as a consumer. I wanted to make sure that we kind of cut through the kind of noise, if you would, and we really focus on some things that are unique and distinct. And if I'm doing that, I feel like I'm doing something right. I'm not going to win everybody over, but if I can win people over that really like new expressions, unique expressions, and want something novel and they don't want the same thing that's sourced from the same place, well, then Rabbit Hole is your cup of tea.
Yeah. Well, I just
What
poured
are you
myself a
drinking
little
now?
bit of
What did
the.
you pour?
I poured myself some very old Fitzgerald,
Nice.
and yeah,
So this is a good story, Fred, because I ended up, believe it or not, getting a couple of cases of this.
oh shit,
Shit, indeed. And it was actually one of the guys who was one of the doors that I knocked when I was trying to raise money. And this gentleman who's become a dear friend now wanted to show me his bourbon collection. Took me to his basement and showed me all this stuff. And I'm telling you, there was probably about half a dozen to a dozen cases of bourbon untouched since the 50s and 60s. And I said to the guy, "Do you have any idea what you got here?" And he said, "No, I just, just some old bourbon. I gave a bottle to my plumber an hour ago or 2 hours ago." Like, well, you just gave you gave your plumber a $2,000, $3,000 bottle of bourbon. And out of gratitude, not realizing what he had, he, made a deal with me and I got a couple of cases. But this is one of my favorite bourbons. I like wheated bourbon. This is a beautiful expression, and can't wait to hear what you think about it.
Well, so some backstory on this. This was one of the brainchilds of Pappy himself,
Yeah.
and they were they had this whole lot, and he used to use this as a way to write about different types of marketing for Princeton. So this bottle's I know this is a 1973 bottle, so he would have been passed away already when this thing had come out, but it was absolutely this bottle is absolutely historic, a part of the whiskey culture, and yeah, so I'm so excited that you shared this with me, because that just means I don't have to open the bottle that I have of the same year later on. So I can save it for later.
Save it for later, brother. I got more here. We can drink some more if you like later.
But I need to return the favor. I do need to send you some whiskey.
I'm always open to that. Absolutely.
Oh God.
Yeah, this is. I can drink this all day.
Damn. Damn. That's like a first date that went right. Oh man. Son of a bitch, that's good.
Son of a bitch, indeed.
So Bruin asks, which distiller would Kaveh like to hang out with for an hour, living or passed out, or past, not passed out, but past. I'm sure some distillers would be passed out. That would be very interesting. But
Well, I'll tell you, living is easy for me. Living is Larry Ebersold. Larry is the master of master distillers, as Mr. Rutledge calls him, and he's a living legend that, by and large, nobody knows about. Nobody, at least outside of the industry, knows about. He, as you probably know, he was at the old Seagram plant, now MGP.
yeah.
He was of the same class with Jim and Dave Shurek and lots of other guys that kind of cut their teeth at MGP at the old Seagram's plant. And, he was my first, if you would, teacher, mentor, and I have deepest level of respect for him. He's a no nonsense, no bullshit guy, and he knows his stuff when it comes to making whiskey.
Yeah, Larry's always reminded me of people like Parker Beam, who didn't quite understand, like, the marketing angle, the marketing world of whiskey, and they just wanted to make whiskey.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's like it's such a weird. We're such in a weird time, in that master distillers, are, their job is to be more marketers than it is to be distillers. So, I mean, and I remember having this conversation with you once upon a time, and you were like, "We're not going to have a master. We're not going to have a master distiller. We're going to have a team." And like, are you still in that mindset? Are you still like in the anti-master distiller mode, or sticking with a team-oriented effect, or where are you all now? What do you think of the whole thing?
Yeah, we are. And I think a lot of it actually goes back to Larry, because Larry is such a selfless, I think, distiller. He understands, what every person has to do to be part of the team. I look at myself as kind of I'm a hack. I started these recipes cooking it in the kitchen, literally upstairs, scared the shit out of my wife, thinking I'm going to burn down the house. And, I had to get a great distilling team to materialize and really bring these recipes to life on a broader scale, right? And that takes a different set of skill sets. So I'm aware of that, and I think they also know that I'm kind of like a mad scientist, because I go to work every week and I'm coming up with all kinds of crazy shit. And they're like, well, this may work, this may not work, and we play around with it and see what happens. So I do think it takes a team to do it, from both the idea stage to the final bottling stage. It's a team effort. There's no just one person doing the work.
Do you think we've over-glorified the term master distiller?
I don't know. I mean, people, from a marketing standpoint, people like a hero, right? They like to have a face or a voice that they can kind of connect to a brand. So I understand the need for that connectivity, and understanding that, okay, Chris goes with Woodford, Jim goes or used to go with Four Roses. That all makes sense, but it does take away from the complexity and the contribution of the team effort. So, marketing wise, I don't think it would change, because people want a hero, but people that are like us and really appreciate what goes into it, I think we're always going to be curious about who are the players, not just one person.
Yeah. Somebody wanted to know what.
This is you just meant. This is Ebersold's Excellent Rye. This is a 12-year-old expression. Just one day I'll get to give you a taste of this, that Larry put together. It's his 95.5 recipe. Most people don't know that he's the mastermind behind the 95.5 recipe. And this is one of his babies at 12 that he shared with me, and I cherish this one. I sip this only on special occasions.
I love that. Somebody wanted to know what cigar you're smoking.
I am smoking a Monte Cristo No. 5.
Nice.
From Havana.
Nice. Well, shall we go to our last dram of the evening, which is an original proof. Now, this one really has some history to it. I can't wait to get into that. So Stitzel-Weller did this original proof for Weller, and for a very small amount, they did these like private bottlings of original proof. They would actually push that toward more of their Old Fitzgerald line, or they would customize it. But this was also another one of those brainchilds of Pappy Van Winkle. He had this whole belief that there was a great deal of marketing reach out there if you got the other people to bottle it and market it for you, but you kept your brand on there. Whereas today, and you know something about this, Kaveh, whereas today, the distillers who do private labeling or some kind of custom distillation or allow themselves to be sourced, the lawyers say, oh, no, we don't want our name anywhere on that bottle. We want that liability gone. And so anybody who is in the source whiskey game or contract distilling game in the modern market, chances are they are not allowed to say where they got the whiskey. Whereas Pappy was like, oh, I want people to know. And Hilton has a better chance of reaching consumers than I do with my little budget. And same with Macy's. And so he did all these private labels for these big like grocery store chains and these hotels and everything. And this right here is one of the originals.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, what year did Original Proof move over to Heaven Hill? Wasn't there was a time that Heaven Hill took over this brand or took ownership of it?
Well, Heaven Hill goes in a buying spree in several phases, but I don't know.
Yeah.
This was an offshoot of their Weller Foolproof, and became into something else. But when it comes to Heaven Hill, I don't know how many trademarks they have for bourbon, but anytime there was a distillery in a little bit of decline, they would find a way to get the trademark.
No, you're right. You're right. They're sitting on a lot of different marks, and this is obviously pre Heaven Hill, but I was just curious kind of when, because I was looking and I was trying to figure out what year did it, because at some point they picked it up, and I just don't know what year it was.
I think this bottle turned. Ooh.
I'm not crazy about it either. This is actually this is one of the bottles that I found, by the way, at a relative's house here in Kentucky. It was just sitting there, and but I thought it would be interesting for tonight because it is from the same distillery that we're tasting the Fitz.
Did your relative keep it next to a kitty litter box?
It was
oh my God, he did. It was
in a little bar area, man. That's what it was.
Oh man, yeah, but it's true. Vintage whiskey is always a risk, because you never know where it was stored. You don't know much about it, like the acquisition of the original bottle. You never know that much about it. So, that being said, you took a risk on it, and I appreciate you sending it. But I'm now going to go back to the Cave Hill.
You should go back to the Cave Hill. I love it. Yep, there you go.
Yeah, I'm going back to the Cave Hill because I know that one will cleanse the palate.
Indeed.
I know that whiskey. Mm. Oh, that was that Cave Hill, man. I think I respect that even more. It's like it's holding up after tasting these incredible whiskeys.
That's awesome. That is so. I can't tell you how fucking amazing it is to hear that, man. It's just.
It's holding up really nicely.
Yeah.
And I'm coming to the. Yeah. So here's a good question for you. How do you come up with the names on your labels?
So the names are, the formula is pretty basic. It's about how do we highlight something that ties into Louisville, and it's been a source of inspiration for us, right? So Cave Hill is a nod to all the past distillers that came before us. And Boxer Grill is in reference to all the great boxing kind of facilities that we've had here in Louisville and the great boxers that came of age here in Louisville, Kentucky. Heigold is named after Christian Heigold, who was an immigrant stonemaker in the mid 1800s here, and his buildings are still here around in Louisville. That's basically kind of the essence of it. The basic formula is how do we, come up with something that is, inspiring, but also ties or has some kind of connection to Louisville for us.
Oh, wow. That's a great question because I never knew that. That's awesome. What does Louisville mean to you?
Dude, Louisville is home. Louisville is, I've been now this summer will be 12 years. I moved to Louisville 12 years ago. And, it is, I just had this conversation actually with a couple of friends where, I said that this is home. I mean, this is going to be where I'm going to be buried. And this is where my life is for the rest of, however many years I'm here. I love this city. I want to get on a rooftop and shout about it and tell people about Louisville because I think it's such a gem that so few people know about. And I think, it's not just even Louisville. I think it's also Kentucky. I think Kentucky is it's a beautiful place. And, in this kind of climate, a lot of times people don't really get to hear and see and experience what we have here. You know it firsthand with Bourbon and Beyond. It was such a wonderful venue to bring people together and showcase what we do here: music, bourbon, food. I mean, everything. I mean, it's like everything under the sun. I have my live stream tomorrow, and I'm going to have Stephen Riley on there to talk about Speed Museum and the culture from the artistic community, the art community in Louisville. There's so much going on here, and I just love this place. So it means everything to me.
Yeah. Well, I've done a lot of stuff with the Speed too, and we now we're going to get in that part of like it's the emotional section of who I am, but with everything that has happened, think about all of our friends who own hotels, restaurants. We had to cancel Bourbon and Beyond. Think about everything that we've been building in Louisville has been based on human beings coming here and gathering and sipping whiskey together and being much closer than 6 feet away. And, I'm constantly asking myself, I know we're going to be fine, but will we get back to that moment where we're expecting hotels to be full? What are your thoughts on that? Because you're in the middle of it as we all are.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about it on a daily basis. With our distillery, visitor center, and everything, it's a topic of conversation. I'm hopeful that we're going to get back there. I think that probably, from a practical standpoint, vaccine has got to be there, or some kind of a immunity has got to be there. But at the same time, people are excited to getting back into it. We're going to be opening up our doors probably sometime in the next month, in line with the governor's guidelines. But I think it's going to be slow. I really think that the next year, in some ways between us, we're kind of looking at 2020 as a year where you kind of call it a wash. You're just hoping to be able to put 2020 behind us and get a fresh start in 21.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I think a lot of it too is like Kaveh. We're in a world that people are more concerned about if they should worry about something than the actual something. I feel like we're in a society that wants you to be anxious all the time, and when there's really not a reason to. I mean, when there's if everything is fine, then there are ways to like make sure. Well, let's make sure we get everybody anxious again. So I guess the question for me to you, getting you to go back in your former life. What's a good way to get people to cope with all of this mentally, like right now? And for those who don't know, Kaveh is a former psychologist, and so he's very good at the therapy, and I'm pretty sure he has some hypnotic effects here and there. But so what are your recommendation for some coping mechanisms as we continue to battle isolation?
I think the isolation piece is about staying connected as much as you can. I mean, the things that we're doing, being able to participate in different ways to be able to get through this sense of isolation. That connectivity, I think, is key. But I think beyond the connectivity, beyond this period, part of what I'm hearing, Fred, is how do we get back to some sense of normalcy? And to me, is that the main thing is how do we combat fear? We can't be afraid. This shit's happened. But we cannot be afraid. I mean, it's the same thing. You were in Iraq. We experienced 9/11. We know what happened. In some ways, it's a kind of a different version of a trauma of some sort. How do we basically get back on our feet and say, you know what, this damn thing is not going to defeat us. We're going to get back on our feet and we're going to be okay, and not let fear take over. I think this is what we have to combat in the coming months. And make sure that we don't become, OCD, completely obsessive compulsive, and have this fantasy that we're going to, somehow be in this super 100% clean universe. That's impossible. The virus is all around us. We got to deal with it, and the best way to do it, I always think about George Carlin, George Carlin's, joke about how, it's like you need to take some of that shit to be able to, boost your immune system. I mean, that's just the reality of it. We can't be in hiding forever. And I think slowly we got to get back and embrace it and not let this virus take over our mindset.
Well, I think that's a good place for us to kind of sign off on. Kaveh, tell everyone how you are like a walking inspiration constantly, whether you want to start a business, or you want to experiment with new whiskeys, if you want to hunt whiskeys, and then you come back in and you give us all hope with the COVID stuff. And man, I just wish more people followed you, knew about Rabbit Hole, doing what I can here about it. But if your whiskey sucks, I'm going to tell you. But just tell everybody tonight how they can find you, how they can find Rabbit Hole. And again, the two things I tasted tonight: high gold, excellent, but folks, the money in the bank, excellent, some bitchin' good, is the Cave Hill, and it's actually what I've chosen to end my night with is the Cave Hill, and I think that's saying something with all the stuff that I have up here. Of course, I want to save this for later. Don't get me wrong, but I really, really, really enjoyed the Cave Hill in a big way. Love it.
Thank you, Fred. I really appreciate you taking the time. It's been a pleasure as usual chatting with you. And folks, thanks for listening to us. And look, we're all over the place. We've got our shop on rabbitholedistillery.com, and through that you can find out wherever you are, California, Connecticut, Maine, what shops close to you are available. We also have presence on all the e-commerce platforms as well, Caskers, Flaviar, all those avenues are also open to you as far as being able to have access to Rabbit Hole products.
Well, Kaveh, thank you so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure. Until we see each other again, my friend.
Thank you, brother. Be good.
All right, be safe out there. Cheers.
You too. Cheers.
All right, everybody, as we kind of say goodnight, I think it's really important that we take the things that Kaveh said really to heart, because we cannot let this beat us. And that is one of the things that, as we look at the unemployment rates, as we look at the things that seem to divide us, the fact of the matter is that we are still getting together and being our community. It just happens to be virally or virtually. Sometimes it goes viral, but I I'm with Laura here. I'm not afraid. I'm not. But I do have concerns about people who are consistently going on and on about one thing or another. It's like what I have learned in this whole pandemic is that you have two sides who hate each other, and then you have the majority of America stuck in the middle. And I'm one of those in the middle. And I just wish that we could get past our differences from time to time and actually not even try to come to a solution, but to have a hot dog, to have a bourbon, just to have a moment that's not about anything. And that is the one thing that I feel like that I try to provide, is that I'm not trying to provide anything. I just want to have a drink with somebody, and I want to talk to them. And that's what this show's about. That's what my podcast is about. That's what all the things that I do is about in terms of the human nature. It's just having a conversation, just having a good time, just having a good time. And we can't lose the fact that we had many good times with people that we didn't believe the exact same things with. And that, to me, is what Kaveh kind of captured so well. And I do think that the hot dog will be the next emoji. So thank you for that, Matthew Gore. I'm going to go ahead and sign out here, folks. But over in the members only chat, if you're not a member, you can click the join button in YouTube, and we're going to go over and have a little sip on something in the members area. But you have to click join. The lowest membership is $1.99. And folks, this is basically YouTube saw like what I'm doing, and they gave me a membership channel. It's pretty rare that they do that for a channel, and unless you hit like a certain plateau of followers. And they did that for mine. I feel very blessed about that, and I'm trying to populate that stuff inside the member channel as much as I possibly can with exclusive content, cool emojis. And you get to see, at one of the levels, you get to see my picks of the year before anybody else. So there is some actual value in there in some ways. And I just really want to say I appreciate everybody who comes on here. And, I appreciate all this. And I got a lot of really great things coming, a lot of great things. But it's this channel, it's this nightly kind of stream that has helped me have like such a wonderful evening every single night. And I get to wake up and I see my kids. I mean, you guys in some ways are becoming like my family. So thank you for joining every single night. It's very important that you remember that you don't lick handrails, you don't lick trash cans, and vodka sucks unless it's being used for hand sanitizer. So that's going to do it for tonight, everybody. Cheers, guys. Be safe. Don't do drugs. Or at least do good drugs. Cheers.